guys, it's Kelly and I'm back again with another video. So today this video is actually a celebration for Picket Fence's first anniversary. I am using the Jungle Babies stamp set and matching dies, and they're super cute and it's a great celebration and there's stuff to win. So hang with me, I'll get to the winning part, I promise. I wanted to do a night scene. I thought it would be super cute. For one of the guys I work with just had a baby, and so I had this whole little story planned out. I'm using distress inks instead of distress oxides. Also, you might notice that the background that you guys all think is marble, but is actually a very well-loved Ranger craft mat, is missing. This is the water media mat from Waffle Flower, and I'm totally loving this thing right now. So anywho, distress inks instead of oxides because distress inks are brighter. Distress oxides are a mixture of a dye and pigment, so they blend wonderfully, but they also have a chalk finish, and I wanted something that was going to be like really rich color. So that's why I go back to my inks. That's why I still got both. I saw a post on like Stamp Junkies one time, and they're like, I have distress ink. Should I get rid of them and get oxides? And I was like, get rid of them? You paid for them. Why would you get rid of them? They're still perfectly good. Don't get rid of them. So anywho, for my night sky, I'm starting with, if you've ever seen me do a night sky before, you know this is how I roll. Salty Ocean to Blueprint Sketch to Chip Sapphire to Black Soot. And it's going to look heinous. It's going to look bad. Because a lot of people give up. They just give up before the process is complete. If you do one layer of ink, it's not going to look great. Which is why I always do it twice, 2 times. And you'll notice I have this little circle on my Blueprint Sketch. It's because my son got into the stenciling, and he used my Distress Oxide foam piece for my Distress ink, or I'm sorry, my Distress ink foam for my Distress Oxide. And so that's why I'm leaving that circle, because they don't, like, they're pigment, you know what I'm saying? So anywho, do the ink blending twice because you'll be much happier with the result. It will blend much better. Same thing that I tell you with Copics, like you saturate the paper. Same thing works with distress inks. If you just keep putting down a lot of color, it's going to blend so much better. For the grass, I went mowed lawn, pine needles, and then I put Black Soot on there, but I didn't re-ink it. I just used what was left on the foam to make it a little bit darker since it is a night scene, and kind of left that highlight right at the horizon line, went back over it with the Salty Ocean so everything would blend. I'm using a paper towel to cover up the grass portion while I just splatter on some clean water in the background. I'm using a number 2 round brush, and this is going to pick up some of that pigment and break it up, so it's going to give a really multi-dimensional look to my night sky. And ta-da, back again, perfect pearls. I know it's been 100 years since I've used them, and thanks to, I know I gave her credit before, but I'm gonna give her credit again because I did not use them since then, to Kelly for sending them to me. This is Perfect Pearls in the color Perfect Pearls. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of clean water. Perfect Pearls bind with water, so it's not going to come off my card, and they give the most beautiful shine. So I'm trying to keep my big splatters to the top, littler splatters to the bottom. And I'm doing that by splattering the top first, and then once the majority of the mixture is off of my brush, I'm switching down to the bottom portion. And this is just because the lighter the sky is, the less you would be able to see the stars. Know what I'm saying? That's just how skies work. It's just how horizons are, people. I am stamping on Nina 80-pound Solar White cardstock, which is the same thing that I used for my card panel. And I'm using Gina K Amalgam ink. This ink is Copic safe, and I'm going to be coloring with my Copics. I know that it seems like it's a little bit crazy. I'm feeling very rushed. Because I need to leave for work in a timely fashion, but I am trying to get this card done so this video can be uploading while I drive to work. Know what I'm saying? So one of the guys I work with did have a new baby. And I thought the whole little theme of like the sentiment in the set, one of them says, "Welcome to the world of parenting. You may never sleep again," which is so true. So I wanted to have like a little papa elephant and a mama elephant and this little baby elephant who is just zooming around the sky with all of this energy while mom and dad are just like sitting on the ground exhausted. Because let's be real, folks, that's life. So that was pretty much my little storyline in my head, because you know that your children just siphon energy from you while you're sleeping. I don't know where else they would get it from exactly, because it seems that they're in an endless supply of it, just all of the energies, and I have none of the energies. Like I remember my we'll get into story time in a minute. Let's talk about the coloring, talk about the giveaway, then we'll talk about story time. Okay. So here I wanted to show you, I want them all to be a family. So I want them all to be in the same color family. So I picked cool grays, but I don't want them all to be the same color because, we aren't all the same color. So I colored it as if there was a center light source. So if the light source was in between mom and dad elephant, so he's going to have all of the light coming to his his right hand side. She will have all of the light coming to her left hand side. So, and for him, I started with a C3, C5, C7, C9. For her, I'm going to go C1, C3, C5, C7. So just by switching out that one marker, you can get a completely different tone. And so this is why you don't need all of the Copic markers. You just don't need them, because just that one or two, that one marker switch out can make a complete difference in what your things look like. So I am adding little shading to his trunk where like the little ridges of his trunk are. I am adding shading underneath his face where his ear meets his head, underneath his little bow tie, on his back half, because remember the light's in front of him. Also adding shading to where his leg is over his other leg and where his middle is, because he's clearly like kind of leaned over his little tummy. So that's what's happening there. And I'm going to do the same thing for her. You'll notice I'm going to leave part of their ears white. It's going to look really weird, but it's a trust exercise because we're going to come back and get it. We're going to get it. Don't worry. So this giveaway, I know we're like 7 minutes into the video. You really had to be invested in order to hear about this giveaway, but trust me, it's worth it. So first things first, there is a discount code, which is amazing. I typically don't see this in anniversary celebrations, and so I think it's so generous of them, and I absolutely love it. So there is a 20% discount off their entire store with this code, and it is good for the next 3 days. So today is the 27th. Next 3 days from here, the code, if you're watching on YouTube, will be linked below in the description. And then also it will be on my blog. The other thing that is super cool and so generous of them, Nicole and Matt Peterson are the ones who own Picket Fence Studios. They have really great designs. I was lucky enough to meet Nicole at Create, and she was amazing and super sweet and totally my kind of people. And so this shouldn't surprise me because of how wonderful she was, but I was shocked because it's such a good giveaway. They are giving away $100 gift certificate to the store. And so again, that's good for 14 days. So we're going to give that away as well. I will it's good for 14 days. So let's say we'll do the same 3 days. So, tell me whether you're okay. So now I know not everybody has kids, okay, but if you have fur pets, fur babies, if somebody else, like you got a niece, a nephew, or something, I want to hear your funniest baby story, because kids are hysterical. They are like, I can off the top of my head think of like 4 funny things my child did this week that were absolutely hysterical. So I want to hear your funniest kid story. Leave that on the blog. That way they're all just in one place. So head over to the blog. It will be linked below. And leave that on the blog for an admission to win this $100 gift certificate. And then I will pick a winner in 3 days when the discount code is up. Yeah, that seems good. All right, I like it. Okay, so now we're doing that coloring. I'm going to move up. And so they had a little girl. The guy I work with had a little girl. And so that's why I put the little bows on them. I drew a bow on the little girl and then the mommy elephant. Like, and it's not, guys, it's 2 triangles in a circle. Okay. This ain't Picasso up in here. All right. So I drew that on there just to show, this one was the mommy and this is the little girl. And so I really thought the whole theme of it was super cute. Like that was, I don't know, I just think it's cute. And so I thought this was a perfect set to tell them congratulations. And when my child, this is back to the exhaustion thing. When my child, who is now going to be 6, I know, I mean, where did the time go? Was a infant. He was a colicky baby. Now, some people don't have colicky babies. In fact, this cookout that I was at last week, they have a little baby and he is 6 months old and he is a delight. He loved everybody. He never cried when anybody held him. He was super happy and curious and looking around. And here I'm coloring in Daddy's ear because I don't want his pink to be as bright when I put it in. And then I'm going to add a little bit of shading to this cloud just to make it a little bit more interesting, starting with my gray markers. And then I'm going to layer over with some other lighter colors just so it doesn't look super boring. Because, who wants to be boring? But anyway, so this little baby was delightful. My child, while I love him a great deal, was a horrific infant. So he was colicky, and pretty much what that means. Now, everybody has their theories on what colic is. That it's an upset stomach, that it's acid reflux, that they're in some sort of pain that they can't tell you about, which clearly they are. They're screaming at the top of their lungs. But my son was colicky. And they told us, basically the 3-month mark would be when it would cut off. Well, we won the baby lottery, and ours didn't cut off until 6 months. So he was colicky for 6 months. And for us, that meant that every night at 7 p.m., he would start screaming. I'm not joking. He would start screaming at the top of his lungs. And then that could go on for 2 hours, 4 hours. You didn't know. You didn't know what you were getting. And so it was awful for him and for us. Just the screaming, the constant screaming. And so we pretty much we had to divide and conquer. That's how we worked it out. So for the first 2 weeks that I was home, my first 2 weeks of my maternity leave, my ex-husband was also home. And so we would just split it up. We tried all the things. We tried the walking, the bouncing, the being outside, the being inside, the white noise, the shushing. I remember this is some. So we took that, the Lamaze class and new parents and all of that stuff, because nobody, you don't know what you're doing. You think you know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing when you get a new baby. And, so we took the shushing class, and they're telling us all of these techniques about how to soothe your baby and how, because there's all this white noise in utero, that if you shush them in their ear, and you have to be louder than they're crying so they can hear the shushing, then that's really soothing to them. Also, you can flip them over in a football hold and kind of swing them back and forth because it mimics the movement of being in utero. These people made these techniques sound like it was foolproof. The moment your kid looked like he might be tearing up, that you could just shush him and you would be golden. Let me tell you something, folks. That is a lie. That is a lie. It was a complete lie. We tried all of it. And there were people who, he really liked being outside, and sometimes that would quiet him. And so the one time my ex-husband was out on our back deck with him, and our neighbor came over, and she was like, give him Tylenol, he's colicky, he just needs this or whatever. And I thought my ex-husband was going to lose his mind. I know she was trying to be helpful, but we were in the trenches. We were totally in the trenches. And he came into the house, and he was he's like, I know she was trying to be helpful, but I wanted to tell her, if there was a small purple flower that was in the far, far reaches of Africa, and I had to climb a mountain to get to the top to get to this little flower that would make this child stop crying, I would do that. There is nothing that I would not do or retrieve or try to make this child feel better. And I was like, you ain't got to tell me. I know. So just try to keep that in mind if you have colicky, if you have people who have a colicky baby in your life, they are trying. And while you're trying to be helpful, try to give them a little bit of grace as well. So I was teasing the guy at work. I was like, yeah, you need to sleep now because your sleep is over. And also help your wife. Like, this isn't just her thing. I don't care if she's breastfeeding or not. Like, get your butt up out of bed. Do the things for her. That this is not just her job. She didn't get pregnant on her own. So anyway, back to the point of this video, outside of the wonderful celebration of the picket fence. I really wanted a scene card, and I really wanted my elephants to be part of my scene, but I didn't want to mask it because there's all these little finicky parts with their tails and the little star catcher, and I didn't want to have to cut any of it out. So here's what I did. I decided I was going to kind of mask it or cover up the fact that there's this white line. And like, you can see it, but it clearly blends into the scene better. Basically what I'm doing is I just laid my pieces down where I wanted them to go. And then I am picking Copic markers that you can see me swatching on the side there that are going to match better. Now here I picked a BG23. I thought that was going to match. It was still a little bit too green once it dried down. And so I'm going to go back over it. You'll see here in a second with a BO2, BO2, I think. And so you can just kind of experiment with it. Now, you don't want to be super heavy-handed because you don't want it to bleed into your coloring. But this is something that you can... Oh, see, I tried the B00 and then I went to the BO2. That's why I got both of them in my head. And these will blend much better into your scene, and it has the added benefit of you being able to like pop them up, which I thought was super cool because normally I have to add shading in order to make my images look like they are popped up. But this time I didn't have to because I could actually pop them up. And I just love the way that it looks. I love the way they blend into their little scene. And so that it doesn't look that... I just don't love the white border, typically. I definitely don't love it in scenes. That's why I usually mask them. But this is a nice alternative if you're feeling particularly lazy like I was. Also, you don't have to use Copics for this, guys. You can use whatever. So you could use water-based markers. Like, as long as your marker... I wouldn't recommend colored pencil because you're going to have that texture and it's not going to... Unless you've colored your background in with colored pencil, then yeah, you do you, boo. But if you're doing this, like with the Distress ink, Distress oxide, whatever you got in the ink blending in the background, I would recommend doing a marker because it's a smoother application. But if you have Tombow, if you have, what else is out there? They even, the Distress ink markers. I never really loved those, except for the no-line stamping. Like, you could color your marker or color the marker on the stamp and then stamp them. I really liked those because then they would blend out into the rest of your business. But just whatever markers you have should work as long as the colors are the same to your background. Here I just added a little bit of ground underneath Mom and Dad. And honestly, I probably should have went a little bit darker. It looked much darker when it was wet. And then once it dried back, it was a little bit too light. But what's done is done. Here, I wanted her to have like the little movement line, like the little zoomy up from in between Mom and Dad into the sky to show she's just kind of flying all over. So I started with really small dashes at the bottom so that it would look as if that was further away. And then my dashes got a little bit bigger the closer that I got to her and her cloud here. For the sentiment, I've already told you what it said, and I think it's hysterical, especially from one parent to a new parent, like, pooh, you in for it. I also drew stars in the background, just with my white gel pen. I just drew in a couple of little stars, the same way they taught you when you were a kid. And just to add a little bit of something. I really do like the way this guy came out. I think it's super pretty. I think he'd be really pretty with, like, some purple in it, but I went straight blue, and decisions were made. So for the sentiment, I am going to heat emboss that. Here is a word of caution. You want to make sure that your background is completely dry. because distress inks are meant to stay wet. They're meant to be able to emboss with them. So if you don't make sure that that business is completely dry before you try to pour some embossing powder on it, you're going to emboss your whole background and you're going to be really sad. I know because I have done it. So if that happens, if you forget to check to make sure it's dry and you put embossing powder on it and it turns out that your background is still wet and sticking to everything, just wipe it off. Just take a soft cloth or a paper towel, wipe off all of your embossing powder, and then dry your background with a heat tool, dry it down completely, and then try again. Don't worry about the stamping. Once you start drying the Versamark, you're not even really going to be able to see it, especially if you're stamping your real sentiment right over it. I got a little smushy when I was pushing down my sentiment because I wanted to make sure I was going to get a good impression. And that was my fault. So I gave it maybe a little bit too much pressure. And so some of the areas were a little bit smushy. I just went in with a very thin, I used a 0.2 millimeter EK Success journaling pen. And I just went in and gave it a drop shadow to separate it from the background. And that worked really well to just kind of clean up those lines. I am going to pop all of these little guys up because for once I have the option to when I normally don't. And so I'm going to take advantage of that. And I'm just using some Scotch foam tape for that. I'm going to get them down. And then the only other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add some more glitters because I think all the things should be glittery. So I'm using a Nuvo clear gloss pen, but clear Wink Stella would work as well. Any of those, I mean, there's a bunch of different glitter markers out there. You use what you got. And then that's it. That's the whole card. So please head over to the blog to get that code for the 20% off and to enter yourself to win the $100 gift certificate. And thank you so much to Picket Fence Studios for inviting me. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.